Oh boy.
Well, welcome and thank you for being with us tonight, May 8th, 2018, for this Pro&Con forum regarding Regional Measure 3. Regional Measure 3 proposes to raise tolls on the state-owned bridges, which is all the bridges in the Bay Area except the Golden Gate Bridge, by $3 over the next several years, if it should pass. And the revenue from this measure would be used to fund various transportation projects throughout the area. Regional Measure 1 was approved by voters in 1988, which was not long after I arrived here. And Regional Measure 2 was approved in 2004, so these come along somewhat infrequently, so you can be forgiven if you haven't seen one of these before. There's a good chance you may not have. But there was another lowercase regional measure across the 9-county Bay Area in the 2016 election, which was a property tax to fund wetland restoration throughout the Bay Area. So the pace of these measures may be picking up, might not be statistically significant, but it might also be representative of the magnitude of the problems that we're seeking to address geographically. My name is Preston Jordan. I'm the Action Director for the League of Voters of Berkeley, Albany, and Emeryville. Yes, I am a man standing up here. As a League colleague of mine said upon welcoming me, the League is kind of like the YMCA, where you no longer have to be young, a man, or a Christian in order to belong. And it's my great pleasure to be a member of the League of Women Voters and work under that name. That name recalls the effort to gain the vote and recalls the ongoing effort to preserve democracy. And the League is one of the most grassroots organizations that defends democracy within the country. I've recently learned some organizations, if you join at the national level, you're a member at the local level. The League truly is grassroots. You must join at the local level. And if you join at the local level, then you're a member at the national level. So we'd really like to have you engaged locally. The League of Voters is a nonpartisan organization that encourages informed and active participation in government, all levels of government. It does not support any parties or candidates. This forum's purpose is to present pros and cons in a fair and civil manner. The hosts for this forum are the League of Women Voters of Berkeley, Albany, and Emeryville, as I mentioned. The League of the Eden area, which is in central Alameda County in the San Lorenzo, San Leandro area, and the Cupertino-Sunnyvale League. Also hosting is the Berkeley City College Political Science Department, and we thank the Berkeley City College for providing this venue for the forum this evening. I'd like to remind everyone that the speakers have all agreed to participate under guidelines set for this forum. The League has a standard set of guidelines that it has all panelists sign that seeks to inform, let's say, some civil guidelines on how to proceed. The guidelines are available for review outside this room should you care to see them. As audience members arrived, League volunteers provided cards for submitting written questions. The questions will be screened to avoid duplication and ensure fairness. If you'd like to submit a question, please raise your hand. And I see a hand raised now, so if somebody would like to go get those questions from an audience member, that would be lovely. Volunteers will collect your cards. The questions must be focused on an issue rather than a person, so there are guidelines for audience civility as well. And they must be questions that are not posed to any particular speaker, but a question that any speaker could address. Each side will have 3 minutes for opening remarks. Following open statements, I will pose either a prepared question or a question from the audience. Each side will have 2 minutes to respond to each question, and each side will be able to decide which of the two speakers spends how much time in the opening statement, the closing statement, and on the questions. The timekeeper will signal candidates with signs marking when they have 30 seconds left, 10 seconds left, and when their time is up. Following the questions, each side will have 3 minutes for a closing statement. Please switch off all electronic devices to silent, and that's a good reminder to me. I'm going to do that now. So good reminders for myself. And be aware that literature or other forms of campaigning, such as buttons and T-shirts, are not allowed within League forum areas. There is a place outside of the room where those can be left if you want to provide information to other people who come to attend. We are videotaping tonight's forum, and the session will be available on YouTube for the
broader community to access. You will be able to find links to the video on lwvbae.org, which is also on the board, as you'll see during the forum. Or you can go to votersedge.org/CA, which is the league's site for voter information for the entire state. We have 4 speakers this evening, 2 to present the pros and 2 to present the cons for Regional Measure 3. On the pro side, we have Dave Campbell and Josh Hoover. And on the con side, we have Joe Grcar and David Schonbrunn. But before their opening statements, just to provide a little bit of context, from the figures I could readily find on a search online, BART's current Transbay capacity is about 300,000 trips per day. And about 400,000 motor vehicles travel over the toll bridges each workday, excluding Golden Gate Bridge. I welcome any of the speakers to correct these numbers if they know otherwise. And with that, we go to the pro side by agreement for its opening statement. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Preston. Is the audio sounding good to everyone? Great. Dave Campbell, Advocacy Director with Bike East Bay.
Do I need the microphone flip on there?
Advocacy Director of Bike East Bay. For the cons, the switch goes upwards. Here in support of Regional Measure 3, I'm the Advocacy Director of Bike East Bay. We were formerly known as the East Bay Bicycle Coalition, and we formed back in 1972 when BART started running trains and said no bikes. And we've been at it ever since, and are now strong supporters of Regional Measure 3 because it's strong commitment to BART, to AC Transit, to Muni, and to transit overall. That's really going to benefit Albany County, in my opinion, East Bay. There's lots of things in Regional Measure 3. Bike East Bay worked with lots of bike coalitions to get money for walking and biking into Regional Measure 3. We ended up getting $150 million for those walking and biking improvements, and we're very proud of that. But our endorsement is not just because of that. It means a lot to groups like ours when BART says we support this, when AC Transit says we support this, when Muni says we support this. And when you look at the long list of endorsements on the Yes on 3 campaign, you'll see that the labor organizations support this, the Democratic Party supports this, seemingly every elected official in the Bay Area supports this. And they all get that congestion has probably never been worse here. I do remember the .com boom and how bad congestion was then, and my sense is it's way worse now. And I think we acknowledge that any transportation plan that goes to the voters is not ever perfect, but this invests 75% of its funding to transit, and it gets the money from a toll on driving. It actually takes that toll from generally more affluent driving commuters. So we're taking money from the affluent driving community and putting it into transit. To me, that's a good thing. And it's also a somewhat unique thing. We don't often do that. Sales taxes are the typical way we do this, and that taxes everybody. Here we're taxing driving to fund transit in the majority, and that's a good thing. It's got lots of money for transit, like I said, it's got money for walking and biking, and that's why we support it, and we hope you'll support it too. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And now for the con side, if you would introduce yourself and proceed.
Hi, my name is Joseph Grcar, and I'm a concerned citizen. I want you to understand that Regional Measure 3 is the product of a flawed system. Most people who are not experts in how the government works in the Bay Area are unaware that the Metropolitan Transportation Commission is our government. It controls our lives by being the funnel through which all state and federal transportation money, all bridge tolls, all transit tolls, all highway monies of any kind get into the Bay Area. And the infuriating thing about it is that the board is unelected. You should think of them as Russian oligarchs because they have enormous power, they control our lives, and they're absolutely not responsive or not integral to us in any way. Consequently, any proposal from them is likely to be flawed, as is Regional Measure 3, for 4 reasons. First, it's unfair to low-income people. I don't know how the pro side can say that more affluent drivers are going to pay the tolls, because the affluent drivers are the billionaires on the peninsula, and they don't drive on the freaking bridges. If you tax low-income people too much, they become homeless or they leave, and both are happening in the state of California. We have had another regressive tax recently, the increase in the gas tax, the diesel fuel, and the car registration fees. How many times can we tax low-income people to provide high-income people with fancy transit systems? Secondly, the measure is doubtful. None of the projects are fully funded. This, I think, is typical in the way the government works these days, but what it means is it's anyone's guess what will actually be done. And it's meaningless to debate that the measure will do this or that beautiful transit project, because many of them are unlikely to be funded. Third, the measure is unaccountable. There are already $3 of transit tolls, of bridge tolls for seismic retrofit, which is a completed and paid for project. So why not use the money from the seismic retrofit tolls, which go on for another 20 years, instead of adding another $3 worth of tolls? Fourth and finally, it's unwise. Many of the rail projects make it easy to extend mass transit to rural areas far from the bay. And this is actually against the League Transportation Policy, which encourages compact transit-oriented growth patterns. And so for these reasons, unfair, doubtful, unaccountable, and unwise, I urge you to vote against Regional Measure 3. Thank you.
And I'll take the last remaining seconds to say, as a transit advocate, I know this plan won't work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And just a reminder, I know passions run high. Certainly I'm here because I'm passionate about many things, including democracy. I would again remind the panelists not to direct comments to the other panelists and point to the other panelists. Thank you very much. With that, we'll go to the first question, which goes to the con side. We will all be alternating between the pro and the con side, as you can see. So the first question is, this measure has no sunset provision and would raise revenue beyond that proposed in the spending plan. How would these additional funds be allocated?
Any way that MTC wishes. This is a major flaw in the drafting of this legislation. The fact that there isn't a sunset means that that MTC can fund these projects to whatever degree it wishes. It exercises a great deal of discretion in how and when it funds projects, and in fact has used that discretion in the Regional Measure 2 to defund the Dunbarton Rail project. My organization had to sue them, and unfortunately they got away with it. So in short, this is a perpetual tax, and that means that MTC gets to play with it as it wishes and build up a tremendous amount of debt service. Oh, okay. I think that's it.
So I just point out, you can, as David was alluding, you can see the situation now with the seismic retrofit tolls. According to the reports of the MTC, the seismic retrofits are done and paid for, and yet the tolls continue for another 20 years. What is that money going to be spent on? I have yet to find an MTC commissioner who can tell me what their money is going to be spent on, other than, quote, maintenance, unquote. Well, that's a heck of a lot of maintenance.
It's a slush fund, let's be clear. It goes to whatever they feel like. Like their $257 million headquarters building built with toll funds.
Thank you very much. And now to the pro side. Would you like me to repeat the question, or?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, sure. The measure has this measure has no sunset provision and would raise revenue beyond that proposed in the spending plan. How would these additional funds be allocated?
The cons are correct in the sense that the MTC would maintain discretion over future use of those funds. That's right. I think it's important to think about what MTC really is, and heard that they're unelected. That's not specifically true, right? The commissioners are not elected to the MTC, but they are all elected officials from various communities around the Bay. And to the extent that they can't say exactly what projects those would fund in the future, that's because they won't be there to decide that. And there's no way for them to commit the MTC board to fund or not fund any specific project in the future. So it's important, I think, that the MTC maintain that ability to respond to future developments, to future demographic patterns, future development patterns, and I think it's doing a disservice to our institutions to suggest that they're in no way accountable for voters.
Notice that the Regional Measure 3, like a lot of these voter-approved ballot measures, has a plan. I think it's a 25-year plan, 20 to 25-year plan of how they're going to spend these toll increases. And that plan is right here. It's online. You can look at it and see the projects that they are going to deliver. In 20 to 25 years, MTC can get back together, and the Bay Area can get back together and say, okay, now what do we want our next plan to look like? And that's how this works. The point that this doesn't sunset is a totally valid point. You can decide for yourself how you feel about that. We do know that transit has had to cut back a lot of service in years recently because they simply don't have the funds to increase the service. We know we're always going to need money to fund good transit service, and we know we need more money. And Regional Measure 3 is a great way to do it.
Thank you very much. We'll go to the next question, and the pro side will answer this question first. BART costs more than $10 round trip from beyond Lafayette and San Leandro to downtown San Francisco. And the Bay Bridge toll is $6 during commute for non-carpool passenger vehicles. What should the price ratio be between these, and why should that be the ratio, ideally citing economic research and policy goals?
I'll start with taking that. If you add in the cost of the gas to drive that car across the bridge, I think they're probably much more comparable. And I haven't done that math. You can do it yourself. But add the cost of gas and the maintenance of your car to get across the bridge plus a $6 toll versus the $10 BART round trip. I think they're at least comparable for sure. I think that's a good point to make. We should be incentivizing BART. And one way we can do that is to improve BART. And one way this Regional Measure 3 is going to do this is it funds $500 million for new BART cars. Raise your hand if you bid on one of the new BART cars. There's only one of them. There's 10 cars on that one train. I think I've bid on it now 3 times, and it's always nice to see the new thing. But once it's not shiny and new, you can decide, do I like these new cars, and what do they do for us? They're going to be quieter. There's going to be more space for people in them. And then the new cars tied in with the new control technology for the new cars, BART will be able to increase its capacity 25%. In 5 years, would you benefit if your capacity in using BART was improved 25% on much nicer cars? I think that's a great incentive.
Yeah, I think it's fair to look at this from the point of view of the commuter, or of the transit, or the user, or the driver. What are their costs, and what are their opportunity costs? Part of the BART is that you don't actually have to do the driving yourself. Like Dave said, there's also all the costs of the vehicle maintenance itself, and that has to be compared to the overall cost of the BART, plus the time differential for any given trip. So I think that's really the way to think about it. I don't know exactly what the right ratio of that should be. I would hope that it would be structured in a way that would, like Dave said, make BART more attractive. We have invested a lot over the years in BART. It is an important legacy left to us, and we should protect it.
Thank you. Would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I'll just go with it. BART is an extraordinarily expensive system. And their price is whatever their price is. I have no input into it, and it's not, to me, a matter of public policy. The thing to note is how fantastically expensive it is, because it was designed as a unique system, the only one of its kind in the galaxy. And because of that, everything they buy is incredibly expensive. And at the same time, they have wasted billions of dollars extending BART to places that barely have enough transit ridership to basically warrant a bus. And so, in terms of their long history of expenditure, I have never seen anything that I consider to be financial wisdom. In addition, their train control system, which they're relying on, I think this is the third or fourth time they have attempted to purchase a train control system that would allow shorter spacing between trains. Previous efforts have failed each time. I have no confidence whatsoever that they're actually going to get a workable system this time. They simply do not have a track record of success at that technology. Thank you.
The best way to make more people ride BART is to lower the fares, but that's precisely what they can't do because the system is so expensive. By the way, they have 700 new cars on order. Those are all paid for. They don't need Regional Measure 3 to get the 700 new cars.
Thank you very much. And the next question will first go to the con side. What, if any, power would the proposed independent oversight committee, which is proposed in the measure, have to control expenditures or alter which projects are funded?
These committees are known in inside circles as lapdog committees. They're officially labeled watchdog committees, but that's a joke. The reality is these committees have no power. MTC used to have 4 advisory committees, and it collapsed them all into one because one of the committees, the Minority Citizens Advisory Committee, started making demands. And the commissioners didn't like that. So they now have one advisory commission that enables them to very efficiently ignore the input coming from these advisors. Similarly, an oversight committee is likely to not even have the power to set its own agenda. That's how the Alameda County Transportation Commission works. Historically, these measures have these fluff pieces in them that call for oversight, and it's just simply a joke. The reality is the oversight needed to be in the front end, and that's where this process that created this measure was totally opaque. It took place behind closed doors, and all they did was pick all of the high-polling projects. The list of projects in Regional Measure 3 is based on politics and location. It's not based on having effective projects. And you can tell that by looking at MTC's documents, the regional plan, which showed future congestion being 44% worse than now. So the claims that this measure will reduce congestion are false.
Thank you very much. Would the pro side like me to repeat the question, or?
No, I think I got this.
Okay.
Thank you. The BART accountability issue really is an interesting one, and one that has caused an awful lot of heartburn over the years in the Bay Area. I think it's really notable to point out in this context that the state senator, Senator Glazer, who has long been a foe of BART management, BART labor, BART in general, now supports this measure precisely because, in large part, he got these accountability provisions put in. Part of that is that it doesn't. The advisory committees don't just report to the BART board; they report to the state legislature, providing that level of oversight as well. So I think it's a little bit disingenuous to say that just because some advisory committees don't have the teeth that they should have or are not effective as they should be, that this one cannot be. I think that it was a heavy lift to get Senator Glazer on board. As you recall, last cycle he opposed RR. Dave and I both supported. And the reason was because he said the BART couldn't be trusted. He now supports this measure. So I think that on its own says an awful lot about how the politics of this issue have changed, and we need to support that change and not try to sabotage it.
Very good.
May I use a balance of their time?
We don't know. Thank you for asking. I appreciate it. The next question is going to the pro side first, and this is the first question submitted by the audience that is being asked. And this question presumes some information, and so feel free to question that information if you want. But the question is, please address the concern that much of the programmatic direction for this measure came from Silicon Valley business interests, while EJ, meaning environmental justice groups, were not consulted.
I'll start this one off. I don't want Josh to answer it. The initial driving interest in regional measure 3 certainly came from Silicon Valley and San Francisco too. I don't think there's any point in denying that. And a lot of the projects go to certain communities to and from Silicon Valley, to and from San Francisco. You can look at the list of projects there as well. But most of the people live in the East Bay or North County, and they're commuting to San Francisco, they're commuting to Silicon Valley. We benefit equally from all these projects. That's why it's called regional Measure 3, not each county Measure 3 stapled together. And that's where the jobs are. And so when we try to improve people's commutes, we have to keep in mind, where do you live and where do you work? And that's what's going on here. So you can decide for yourself, where do you think people work, where do you think they live, and where should we be building better transportation between the two. The thinking here was, yes, from leadership in Silicon Valley and San Francisco, and the East Bay with Assembly Member Frazier, is they generally live in the East Bay, North Bay, and they generally work in San Francisco and Silicon Valley, and we need a regional measure that gets them to and from those two locations.
Yeah, just to kind of add on for some context, it's important to point out that the authorizing legislation for Regional Measure 3, SB 595, was written by the chair of the Senate Transportation Committee. That's Senator Bell from Santa Clara. So it's pretty natural to expect that, yes, a lot of those interests are going to be reflected. I think it's fair to acknowledge that in previous measures, especially Regional Measure 2, when the caucus leadership was more East Bay focused, that East Bay did a lot better. So yeah, I'm not going to defend the purity of that process. I've critically did before in public and will again. But I think it is fair to say that the East Bay will benefit tremendously from this measure.
Ready? Thank you. Yes.
Okay. This measure is a giant boondoggle for Santa Clara County. They are going to get 14% of the dollars, while paying only 2% of the bridge tolls. So it's strikingly unfair. Also, Santa Clara has a huge voting base that is determining how people in the East Bay will pay tolls. So this is all extremely unfair. Not only did the Silicon Valley Leadership Group, was it active in the politics of putting this measure together, but Silicon Valley business are the primary funders of the campaign pushing this measure. There's something very clear that the public needs to be aware of, which is they're funding this campaign to get the public to pay the transportation improvements to take their own employees who are creating the massive congestion on the roads right now. So this is their idea, is let's get the public to pay for this. By contrast, in Portland, Oregon, they have a payroll tax on all employers. They pay a percentage of their payroll, and as a result, that funds the regional transportation system. In addition, there are no bridge tolls in the Portland area. So ask yourself, is that a good plan? It's important to note that there are a series of Silicon Valley leaders that have opposed this measure. Supervisor Simidian, the Cupertino City Council, Mayor Siegel of Mountain View. These people have come out and they're opposed.
Thank you very much. We'll go to the next question. This will go to the con side first. And this is somewhat of a combination of two questions submitted by the audience. One audience member asks you to address the effects on low-income people who have to drive these bridges every day if this measure passes. And another asks about the possibility of BART having an unlimited ridership pass, as so many other major cities do.
I didn't get the second question.
That's fair. I probably stumbled a little bit there. The second part of the question was regarding BART having an unlimited ridership pass, like a monthly pass, for instance, rather than a toll for each trip, as so many other cities do have a monthly ridership pass, kind of like AC Transit has a monthly ridership pass, which would be of assistance in a way to subsidize low-income households.
And so that would apply to the bridges as well?
Well, no, so it's sort of two different questions, but I'm putting them together because they both have a nexus with low-income households.
Yeah, well, I'd like to tell you about the low-income driver just for a second. They aren't people who live in the East Bay and have those $200,000 a year jobs at Facebook. Okay, I'm thinking of a teacher who lives in Fairfield, and she drives to Hayward. So that's a one-bridge commute. There's no special compensation to her for a one-bridge commute, and it's going to cost $8. And she takes the express lane through Walnut Creek down to Dublin, it's going to cost another $8, both directions. Or I can think of a carpenter who works in Livermore, and he works in Millbrae building desks for the Facebook and Apple high-tech office centers. So that's another example of a guy who goes one bridge, he pays the $8, and he doesn't get any help from that. So just keep those people in mind.
And while you're doing that, there is talk about some kind of a low-income discounted toll. However, the proposal that MTC put forward was pretty pathetic. It was a 20% reduction, and they were asking transit operators to pick up half of that subsidy. So they're not serious yet, and they're not committing funding from RM3 to do that. They don't have statutory authority, quite frankly, to do that. In terms of unlimited fares, there are technology issues, but BART is a mileage-based ticket, and I'm just not sure that could actually be implemented, that question. But for low-income people, this is a very scary problem, this toll increase.
Thank you very much. And to the pro side, would you like me to repeat the questions, if you mind stumbling and asking them?
Yeah, sure, please.
Sure, okay. So the first question was to discuss the potential impact of Regional Measure 3 on low-income households that have to drive one or even two bridges a day. So discuss equity in that regard. And the second part of the question I'm combining in is the idea of creating a system whereby BART could have, say, monthly passes that could then be subsidized for low-income households.
Let me start by answering the second part. I'll let Josh take the first part. Regional Measure 3 has in it money to fund what is called Clipper 2.0. If you use a Clipper card today, you're essentially using Clipper 1.0. And what Clipper 2.0 is going to be is based on the technology that needs to be developed, but Regional Measure 3 is funding to develop that technology. One of the goals of that technology and of Clipper 2.0 is to give low-income transit discounts. And that's where the mayor wants to take Clipper 2.0. It's perhaps a valid point that we're not there yet. We haven't figured it out yet. But Regional Measure 3 is committing the money to do that. And we know NTC, on a parallel track from Regional Measure 3, has already started that process. They've already started talking to the transit operators to try to come up with transit passes for low-income commuters, and the transit operators are working with MTC to try to figure it out. And so it's a valid point. We have not figured it out yet. But Regional Measure 3 is going to commit money to help us figure it out.
Yeah, and this is one of the hard parts of this measure for me as well. We're talking, nobody likes bridge tolls. Bridge toll, this is a real expense in people's daily lives. It is in essence a hardship. So is the traffic congestion and all the problems that come with it. I think one important part to point out is that the measure does allow for a 50% decrease on trips that include 2 bridge crossings. So after the first bridge, you get a 50% discount on that fare. So that pretty much takes it back to pretty close to the old previous amount. And the other part is just to say, yeah, we have not quite figured this out yet. There is still a lot of work to do. But I have spoken with many of the MTC commissioners. I really think that they are invested in figuring this out. We're not there yet. We don't quite have the technology, but I think we will, and I think we'll get there.
Point of information. Can I make a factual statement here?
I would say that in your own time, maybe in your closing statement.
Well, but it relates to something he just said.
No, I'm not going to allow that kind of crosstalk. Thank you very much. Moving to the next question, which is first to the pro side. The spending plan proposes to spend $4.5 billion on capital projects. That's in addition to annual operating funds for public transit agencies. 2/5 of that $4.5 billion in spending appears to be on projects that will not reduce congestion on bridges. The largest of these are BARTs within, so not 2, but within San Jose and Santa Clara. So with fund and extension that is actually within the city limits of those 2 cities. And the creation of combined carpool toll express lanes. Each of these components is $300 million or more. Why should these be funded by bridge tolls when it seems unlikely that either is going to reduce congestion on any bridges? That's the pro side first.
All right, let's all just decide for ourselves. If we extend BART to downtown San Jose, is that going to help your commute? And talk to your friends, talk to your neighbors, talk to your coworkers, talk to everyone to see, is that a good project or not? Right? I think it speaks for itself. You don't need to hear from Dave Campbell, the advocacy director of Becky Stay, whether BART to San Jose is a good project for you or you or you. I think we can all decide for ourselves. I think we can also perhaps help congestion on Interstate 880. All right? And then you could probably extrapolate from that. You could also fund Caltrain improvements between San Jose and San Francisco, that's going to help commuters on that corridor. And then you can start to see, well, does that help the Dunbarton Bridge? I think it does. And the reason it does is because these bridges are part of a transportation network. They're not a network in and of themselves. They're not isolated. We could just fund BART and say, well, it's funding BART. That's very compartmentalized. The bridges are part of a freeway system. And BART and our transit service is part of that transportation network. And so when you build BART to San Jose, for example, or when you invest in Muni, or when you invest in AC Transit, you're helping regional transportation. And that's why this is called Regional Measure 3, and that's why there's a nexus between the bridge tolls and regional transportation improvements.
I'd like to hear the question again.
Sure. Debate then with your time? Okay. Yes, so this measure, the spending plan for this measure, I should say, proposes to spend $4.5 billion on various capital projects. 2/5 of that $4.5 billion appear to be proposed to be spent on projects that would not necessarily reduce congestion on bridges. The largest of these are BART within San Jose and Santa Clara, so not extending BART to those cities, but building BART within those cities. And creation of combined carpool toll express lanes. Each of these projects is allocated $300 million or more. Why should these be funded by bridge tolls?
Well, the simple answer is they shouldn't be, and we believe it to be unconstitutional that this measure is framed as a user fee, and yet you said 2/5. According to my calculation, less than 1/5 of the dollars that would be raised in this measure would actually benefit bridge users. That's things that, for instance, ferries, approaches to bridges, etc. In my view, adding cars to BART does not benefit bridge users. It's far too remote from that. In addition, I have opposed the BART to San Jose extension since the year 2000. In my mind, it is not going to have anywhere near the effect that proponents claim. But what the effect that it will have is to suck up massive resources from this region that are really needed desperately for other projects. So I do not believe that's going to make any difference whatsoever. On the issue of nexus, the 4/5 of the dollars have no relation whatsoever to bridge corridors. And as a result, I assert that this is clearly a general tax on bridge users to benefit the rest of the public, but not themselves. That's why it's not a user fee. And I believe that's the grounds on which this measure is going to require a 2/3 vote when a court deals with this question. I'll just add that when you say $4.5 billion of projects, let's not forget that probably half the money expended would be debt service. And so that's not even a project.
Thanks very much. And the next question is coming from the audience and is going to the con side. Questions are, what if Regional Measure 3 does not pass? And you actually touched on this already. What would be a better way to fund transportation and transit?
Well, the first thing is we need to have a plan that makes sense. The reason that the Bay Area is massively congested is because 65% of commuters are driving alone. The problem is not getting people out of their cars. The problem is getting them to carry a passenger. So what's needed requires no capital money whatsoever. We need a massive promotion of ride sharing, where somebody picks up a passenger living near them and drops them off at a destination near where they're going. That's the future in my mind. The costs of doing so are very low, and to do this we need to have well-flowing HOV lanes, which means we have to stop this mad process where MTC is building toll lanes in the HOV lanes and then encouraging solo drivers to buy in. This is making congestion worse. It is the stupidest possible thing that one could do from a policy standpoint if you're trying to deal with congestion. And as far as MTC goes, if they knew how to solve congestion and reduce congestion, they would have done it already. So anything that's in this measure claiming they will cut traffic, it's just a lie. Their own, let me just finish this, their own document says that there'll be 1 million more cars on the road in 2040 and 2.5 million more solo trips every day. This, and 21% more driving. The net result is far more congestion than we have today. This is really serious, and you're being lied to.
Thank you very much. And so that will go to the pro side.
We have ride sharing now. There are lots of ride sharing apps around. More of it seems like are rolling out every day. The fact of the matter is that people have shown what their preferences are and what they are willing to do for a commute. And they don't all include ride sharing as much as I would like to see that utopia myself. The fact of the matter is we have been underinvesting in our transportation infrastructure for decades. While our population has boomed, our economy has boomed, we have failed to keep up with paying the bills for what you need to do to manage that kind of growth. I don't think realistic to say that, well, if people just pack more closely into some cars, all of those pressures from growth, from demographic changes, from economic changes suddenly evaporate. They don't.
I'll add that gas taxes and bridge tolls, fees or taxes on driving is the way to improve transit service, and that's what we're doing here with Regional Measure 3. And I do agree, MTC, our regional transportation agency, can do more and be more creative and more innovative in pushing a better transportation system. And if it's a payroll tax that's going to help make that happen, that's great. We did know that the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, back in 2013, when they started One Bay Area Grant Program, where they started shifting money into transit-oriented development, they pissed off everybody. They seemingly pissed off everybody, the Regional Transportation Agency. So take a moment to think about that. Who was upset when they decided we're going to put more money into transit-oriented development? The county congestion management agencies have not made a similarly difficult decision like that. And from a bicycle advocate's perspective, the decision that MTC made back in 2013 has really helped us fund a lot of good bike ped projects in downtown areas.
Thank you very much. This next question will be a combination of an audience question and a prepared question. As you know, there's been some high-profile transportation.
Who's it going to?
Oh, I'm sorry. This is going to the pro side to start with. Thank you for clarifying. As you know, some high-profile transportation projects in the past have gone dramatically over budget, such as the eastern span of the Bay Bridge and the Oakland Airport BART connector. Some have actually come in under budget, such as the Warm Springs extension. So it suggests that there's going to be some projects that need more funding, maybe some projects that need less funding, and there will be adjustments that are needed in the future. The question from the audience is, will policies and plans be made and discussed in public? Will there be a chance for the public to learn and comment on the evolving plans?
Yes, there are now, in fact. I encourage you to attend the board meetings of your local transportation authorities. A lot of what really affects your daily life, your commute, happens in those meetings. And they are open to the public. Dave and I have both sat through maybe more than our fair share in our day. I think that, there are going to be unforeseens in different projects. MTC did not do well with the Eastern Span. Fair enough. I think we don't need to rehash all that here. But I think there are other projects you can point to as successes. Our own Contra Costa Transportation Authority has actually done very well in keeping their projects on time, on budget, and that's in large part due to a lot of advocates and constituents holding them to their commitments, and that is a key part of this solution.
Yeah, another project that came in under budget was the Colorado Tunnel Toward 4, a project that the East Bay Bicycle Coalition opposed, but it was funded by Regional Measure 2, a similar measure that had a list of projects that the voters approved and that are being delivered. Just like Regional Measure 3, there's a list of projects. You can decide for yourself if you like the projects or not. There they are. And it's a very clear list of projects, and that's one reason I think it's much more accessible to the voters to simply look at the list of projects and decide, do I like this list or not? There's very little programmatic area here. This large pots of money that can be programmed later. One thing we're doing here with Regional Measure 3 that we didn't do with Regional Measure 2 is there is this oversight committee. And that committee reports out from the Metropolitan Transportation Commission. They have subpoena power. They can say, under force of law, give me the documents we need to look at in order to make this report out to the public. And Measure BB in Alameda County has a similar independent watchdog committee that has that power and reports out over the board of the agency that makes those decisions. I think that's one great opportunity to make sure the money is spent and as according to the voter's mandate.
And we get another 10 seconds.
Certainly.
It's not so much the projects that are over budget, it's the little projects that are going to slip through that are going to condemn the future of transportation in this area. For example, they want to have more ferries, primarily in order to add a ferry terminal somewhere between AT&T Park and Candlestick Park. That's the undeveloped old industrial section of San Francisco, and the San Francisco interests want to develop that. Similarly, the Bay 2, they want to run it from the tip of Alameda Island, which is undeveloped land, to this same area of San Francisco. It's all transit projects for developers going from one undeveloped piece of land to another undeveloped piece of land.
Disagree with Mr. Campbell in the sense that it's not about looking at the list of projects. It's about understanding the cumulative benefit of the entire list of them. And when you do that, you find that the benefit is essentially zero. So, again, I come back to the claim that this measure is going to reduce congestion, it will reduce traffic. Nonsense. There's nothing about it that's any different from what we've seen over the last 20 years. It's all the same stuff, and that has not worked. Continuing on with that theme, the oversight committee is the members will be picked by MTC. That ought to tell you something right there. And these people are not going to be saying we're being defrauded. I think I'll leave it there.
Very good. Thank you very much. And with that, we'll move to closing statements as we're drawing near to the hour. And the con side, if you would go first, please, with your closing statement.
So our message is Regional Measure 3 won't work, and it's not fair. Let me start my clock while I'm at it. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. And what we've seen is some great leadership by elected officials. Congressman DeSaulnier wrote a striking piece saying that this was a grab bag of projects that do not reflect comprehensive planning, despite the proponents' use of the word comprehensive. I've got all of these things posted on our website, occupymtc.org, and I invite each of you to check that out. There is a vast amount of information about all of this. So the problem here is that MTC is unaccountable. The commissioners, there is no way of having an effect on them in terms of their decisions. And what this means is that they are operating without consequences, and the decisions that they make are consistently political as opposed to seeking to achieve transportation benefits for the region. So what they've been doing all these years is facilitating solo driving. And the reality is we've reached a point in the growth of the Bay Area that there are simply too many people. And if they drive alone, the roads are massively congested. And this is why we're proposing, for the first and the low-hanging fruit, going after ride sharing, going after carpooling, and then after that, putting money into bus systems and into cost-effective rail. That is not BART, by the way. Although BART might use a station here and there in urban areas. But there has not been any concern about cost-effectiveness at MTC historically. Again, it's all about cutting up the pork, dividing it amongst all various jurisdictions. And we now have we have the same number of transit riders across the region as there were in 1982. This means that MTC has massively failed in allocating many billions of dollars.
Thank you very much.
A couple of quick fact checks. There are many more transit riders now than were in 1982.
Not true.
Also, the MTC,
Please.
in addition, the MTC Commission does not appoint members of the Oversight Committee. Those are appointed by the county boards and supervisors from each of the subject counties. All that said, democracy is unperfect. We find ourselves in an unperfect situation. We have failed to manage our growth for way too long. We have kicked too many cans down the road, bickered amongst ourselves about what the most appropriate, best possible solution could be without taking care of the basics, without taking care of our roads, without taking care of our transportation infrastructure, without taking care of our transit, without taking care of BART. This has got to stop. If we are going to continue to grow, and I guess one solution could be to build a bunch of walls around the Bay Area and just not allow that anymore, I don't see that as a viable option for us. Instead, we need to think about some smarter growth potentials, something besides ride sharing. I agree, there is definitely a place for shared vehicle use in this equation. It is not the complete solution to our problem. And neither is our inquiry. To be really clear, what we really need is a much larger measure, a much larger initiative that frankly would be a real tax, and would be subject to the 2/3 vote. That's not what we're talking about here today. What we have is a product of an imperfect system that has been put together by valuable people, but in and net will help our infrastructure, will help us grow. It is not the complete solution. I don't think anyone is pretending that it is, but it is a necessary part of it. It is one of the steps that we are going to have to do while we do figure out our best system and our best way to pay for the system that we are really going to need if we're going to fix this crisis. Because a crisis it is, right? The fact of the matter is that we have a complex intersection between our growing, our aging and increasingly obsolete infrastructure and a booming population. Something has got to give, and I think that part of the solution is really going to have to be a significant public investment, of which this is an important first step. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. And with that, we'll close the forum. On behalf of the League of Women Voters and the Berkeley City College Political Science Department, I want to thank the speakers, and if you'll join me in giving them a hand. As well as the volunteers who facilitated this event. I also want to thank the audience for coming, and for you that watched this video, for watching the video. You all make democracy stronger by doing so. And I also want to thank the audience members who proposed questions. It was always very helpful. For further information about upcoming forums, the candidates, and ballot measures, you can visit the League's website, again at lwbeae.org or votersedge.org. You'll find information there about candidates and ballot measures and links to other information sources. The date for the primary election is Tuesday, June 5th. The deadline to register to vote is May 21st. So I'm sure many of you know vote by mail has already started. If you have moved or changed your name or wish to change your party affiliation since you last registered, you need to re-register by May 21st. Online voter registration is available at the Secretary of State's website, registertovote.ca.gov. And we have voter registration forms available right here tonight. You can stop by the table outside for those and for other information. Members of the League of Women Voters do the hands-on work to safeguard democracy. We're out on the streets, we're in the courts across the country, and working in cyberspace. While we never endorse a candidate, we are directly involved in shaping important issues to keep our community strong. If you would like to be involved with the women and men helping make democracy work, it's easy to join the League. We encourage you to visit our website or use Google to find your own local league. Please remember to vote by mail or at the polls this Tuesday, June 5th. Encourage your family, friends, and neighbors to vote. Thank you again for caring about democracy. Good night.